68 Mac Media Day. Jeff Goodman, Rob Doster. It's great to have you here. I think you're in a really interesting spot here as a commissioner in this era of college athletics, because you're the commissioner of a league that has a really fun and really entertaining and really good football product. And you're also a league where you're going to have 1, 2, 3 teams on the basketball side that aren't just in the mix for making the tournament, but we could be talking about getting at-large quality bids here.
Well, we would certainly hope so. We have a history of being having very, very robust conference competition. And then our top teams generally are competitive with anyone nationally. Now, the question is, can we get out of the gates early enough, have the November and December that we have to set up the rest of the year? And that's really the challenge where we sit in the food chain. You don't get a lot of mulligans. And so got to stay healthy. You've got teams, and particularly in today's day and age where the rosters are being recreated on a yearly basis, the ability to blend those young men and young women together and do the things you have to do, it's really quite a challenge for our coaches.
John, great to see you, number one. And we had a blast today. We had a blast. Like, it was entertaining. I don't know how much you listened to it, but we have fun with the coaches. They're really good coaches. And I think, the big thing for me is looking at this league now, and you're seeing a lot of retention among some of these top teams, right? That you didn't expect out of maybe Akron, Miami. These are teams that won at a high level last year and were able to retain. How much of this was a talking point for the coaches and you over the offseason to make sure that they have the resources to be able to retain?
Well, it's less of a conversation between me and the coaches and me and our administrative groups, right? And so they all want to be successful, right? And so we're still in the infancy of what's going on with these additional benefits or revenue share, whatever you want to call it, as well as the third party NIL. We have a handful of schools that I think are being very aggressive. I look to see continued growth in that from our membership. And then, you saw them today, you interacted with them today. We have a good group of folks. I really enjoy working with these people. They're strategic, they're hardworking, they want to lift everybody up, and that's not easy to do in a enterprise where your livelihood depends on beating up the person sitting across the table from you, right? So I am always have a lot of gratitude for how well our group works together in seeking ways to lift up every single team in this league.
John, the name of our company right here is the Field of 68, right? And that might not be something that continues past the season. Tournament expansion is a hot button topic, shall we say, in the world of college athletics. My question is, and I think this is specifically interesting for MAC basketball fans, because if it expands, what we want, me and Jeff specifically, is to be able to have access to the tournament for some of the best mid-major programs in a given year. And I think oftentimes there are going to be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 teams from the MAC that qualify as that. What can you do to ensure, if the tournament does expand, if this ends up being 76 here next season, how can we ensure that programs like your schools are going to be able to have access to those 8 extra bids?
That's a good question. It was this summer when we were at commissioners meetings and Charlie Baker was there and having a conversation. And I raised the question as he was talking about possible expansion. I said, why are we doing this? What is the reason behind it? And he gave an answer that he's given consistently since that time. And it's along the lines of, there are deserving teams out there that should be in the tournament. I would argue wherever you draw the line, there's going to be deserving teams just below that line, right? So I guess I'm a little bit agnostic on expand it, don't expand it. What we have works pretty darn well. To some extent, we have such a large field for the upper end of the food chain. It certainly waters down their regular season a good bit. I don't think it does for us. And, we've had updates along what they're thinking with brackets and so on. But I think that's going to be a work in progress of, okay, what happens if they do expand it and how does it play into it? I don't think it's being expanded to ensure that the Mid-American Conference gets a second or third or fourth team in. Perhaps we do. That would be great. Whatever comes out of this, our focus needs to be, we go into those matchups and let's win those games. And so if I'm sitting here and if I start ending up in being 12 versus 12 games, maybe I'm not thrilled about that opening Tuesday or Wednesday, but I got news. That game is a more winnable game than a 13 versus 5 game or 4 game, right? So let's go and win that unit and let's go to the next round and win that next game. So whatever we do, I'm going to be a glass half full. Let's figure out a way to go into that tournament and let's be as successful as we can. Let's earn as many units and advance as far as we can.
Well, one of the big things that we've heard from coaches on this media day tour, especially once the mid-major level, is the scheduling issues that a lot of them are facing, right? I think you see from the Power 4 and Power 5 leagues, what they want are the best quad 1s or quad 4 opponents. And it feels like some of the programs like yours that are the quad 1/quad 2 variety can kind of get squeezed out of that. And it's very hard to put together an at-large resume without getting a couple of shots at some of the big boys. What can you guys do to help with their scheduling?
I agree. In fact, I saw it last year and I'm seeing it this year in our schedules. And we are not getting the games we used to get, plain and simple. And I don't think it's because of lack of effort. And I've had enough time talking with coaches and administrators on that. That's a problem. It's a problem because of what the metrics are. Given where we are in today's world of basketball, you would not have some of the emerging brands we've had in the past decade, given where we are with what's going on with roster transition and what's going on with scheduling. What can we do? We need to continue to reemphasize, lean into what we can do. And that is in the case of our league, we need to be playing more home games, plain and simple. We need to get more games on our own court. Let's take care of business first there. We need to continue, and Ricky Stokes, who oversees our men's and women's basketball, I task him with, be in touch with all of the MTE operators. Do what you can to find slots to put our teams in those events. Let's get as many of those as we can. And then, quite frankly, are there ways to leverage scheduling in other sports to facilitate basketball scheduling? For instance, if you've got a basketball game, a football game comes up, and maybe it's a last-minute game, you're helping somebody out, can we leverage some basketball off of that, for instance? Those types of things. You try to be as creative as you can. I believe our folks are working hard at it, but you're touching on a concern that we continue to track, and it is an issue.
Tough to solve. Really, really tough to solve. John, are you still on the D1 Council?
I am. It's now called, well, it was coming out of the governance reset. It was called the Administrative Committee. It has now been renamed the Cabinet. So Stay tuned. We'll see what is named next week.
What is, in your opinion, the biggest issue upcoming for men's basketball with regards to whatever they're calling it now, the cabinet, the council, whatever?
Yeah, you know what? I'll put a couple out there. We continue to play around with the transfer windows, right? When you can declare. We've not done a very good job of putting them somewhere and then living with them for a couple of years and see if they actually work or not. And the corollary with that is also this. I don't think tampering has ever been worse than it is today. Regardless of having tampering windows transfer windows and all those things. I'll give you an example. We had a coach relate a story to me. He had essentially an agent come up to him with a sheet of players that he was in essence shopping. Well, the agent wasn't paying attention, and on that sheet were two of that coach's own players. right? So he was shopping his own players to him. Coach had no idea those players were even thinking about going into the portal at that time, right? That is, it's worse in basketball than it is, as far as I can tell, in any other sport. And we've got to get our hands around it. Part of the way we're going to get our hands around it, our coaches and others are going to have to be willing to come forward and name names and point at, hey, they're doing X, Y, and Z, right? It's hard to do. Unless we can get to that, it's going to be really hard to manage that. I think another issue we need to pay attention to is in and around sports wagering. And I've been a proponent. I was a proponent of legalized sports wagering. I think it brings transparency and sunshine onto something. And I think it helps us to identify where we have problems and issues. I think we have some problems in college basketball in and around some sports wagering and some games being played with manipulating, not necessarily outcomes. I don't know enough about that, but certainly one of the trends we've seen are people trying to manipulate the over-under in the first half, for instance. I think in the next 6 months, you'll be reading more and more about that. We need to get our hands around that. And whether it's getting prop bets out of the game, better educating our student athletes as to, folks, everybody is watching you. There's reams of data. I get a readout on every single game that is played in a handful of sports from an integrity services. The investigations we will do if we think we detect some anomaly. And let's face it, in basketball, you're going to have off nights, right? So there's always anomalies going on, but are there trends you can detect and things like that? We've got to get our hands around that. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it because at the end of the day, one of the biggest things my office needs to do, our schools need to do, our coaches, our student athletes need to do is ensure the integrity of the game. If we lose that, we've got a problem. Now, I don't think that's widespread, but there's enough of it going on that we really need to pay attention to this and get our hands around it.
Yeah, that was
John,
unbelievable. John,
that was great.
Before Rob jumps in and we say goodbye to you and finish the men's portion of this, this might have been the best interview we've ever done with a commissioner, ever. Because but it's true. And I think you've been doing it long enough that you're not worried about any repercussions or anything like that. You say it the way it is. And man, some of those answers were just really informative and really honest. So we appreciate that.
It's great to be with you today. Thank you for working with our teams and our league. And I know we'll be crossing paths somewhere down the road this season.
Yep. It was
Thanks,
awesome, John. You have some great coaches, some entertaining kids in this conference.
Looking forward to it.
That's John.